We can talk about all of this with Wang Dan, who's China Director at the Eurasia Group. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time today. So why does this fourth plenum matter so much in the current political and economic context, and how important an event is it?
It is the most important political event this year and probably in the next 5 years, because it will set the tone on what the Chinese policymakers intend to do. There are a lot of interest now actually from the global investors on China, but there's a huge uncertainty on the policy choice. Since the beginning of this year, there was, you can call it a policy complacency from the Chinese government, because there's very little stimulus, additional stimulus on consumption. When everybody thought there should be more, the government actually still focused on high tech. And then we will have more of a clear idea once the fourth plenum happens, what we'll do next.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about those challenges. China, of course, continuing to deal with deflationary pressures and a serious property downturn. What kinds of new measures can we expect from policymakers at the plenum, and could they help to restore confidence, perhaps?
The core of the fourth plenum is to restore confidence, but not through the housing market. That part of the market is mostly in the risk prevention realm, and we can see that the policy focus has been on this long-term growth trajectory. And for the housing market, we believe it won't reach a bottom before 2027. And the government has done a lot to help the borrowers and the real estate developers, but not really to reverse the downturn of the housing cycle. And when it comes to deflationary pressure, there is a lot of activities in the anti-corruption campaign, but this year very little has materialized. The market expectation is from the next year on, we'll see some actual capacity cutting, and from 2027, that's when we'll see probably an uptick of the domestic inflation.
And how do you expect the plenum to balance China's push to increase domestic consumption while continuing to rely on exports, of course, especially with the ongoing trade friction with the West?
So when we look at the priorities listed in today's Politburo meeting, we can see that the number 2 priority right after enhancing the party's leadership is the social welfare. So there's a lot of focus on redistributing of the social resources from the state-owned sector to the individual families, and that's going to be good for the long-term consumption. But when it comes to the economic agenda, there's very much a focus still on building up the capacity, especially in the emerging industries. So that is showing that the domestic policy choice is mostly up to the domestic imperatives, and it's not really caving up to the pressure from either the US or other foreign actors. And this is quite consistent in the past 10 years, and we have seen tremendous progress actually as reflected in the equity market. And the world believes that China is producing the best companies, and it will continue to do so. And for the export sector, it has been outperforming since 4 years ago, and even this year, we can still see the outperformance of export. I believe we're at the start of the Chinese company going global, and this momentum won't slow down, and it will continue to be the main driver for Chinese economy.
And do you expect the plenum to send any signals to foreign investors who are increasingly cautious about China?
As long as the government is consistent on its policy support, the global investors will eventually come on board. I've been traveling around the world from Japan to the US to Europe in the past 2 months, and everyone is watching China with interest, and people can see this tremendous potential in the industries, from consumer goods to new energy supply chains to new materials to aeronautics, astronautics. And these are the bright side of the economy. And people have been expecting more policy response from the Chinese government, but there hasn't been much this year. It's more about shoring up the baseline of the thinking. So the government will present more of a clarity in the fourth plenum, and starting from next year, I believe the confidence of the global investors will be stronger than what we see now.
Really good to get your insights. Wang Dan, Director of China at the Eurasia Group, thank you very much.